So for those of you that don't, I'm Jeff Dubé. I'm the year 2 coordinator. John is sick, so he was like, hey, Jeff, can you cover? Yeah, my back's hurting from carrying the team, but no, don't tell him I said that. We're going to cut that from the video. All right, y'all, so we have a special guest today, so I'll introduce him in a second. And one of the reasons I'm super stoked to have him here is he was actually the first person I ever met when I came to UT. So he's the one that got me to come to grad school here. I really look up to him. And part of the other reason is he's talking about mentoring. And y'all are surrounded by your wonderful mentors here tonight. So in the orange, yeah, let's give him a round of applause, yeah. Woo! So I also, I supervise them and I coordinate all the mentoring program stuff. So that's why I'm also really happy to introduce Rich about, or Dr. Reddick, sorry. So let's get to it. So this is Dr. Reddick from the Education Department, Higher Education Administration. What are we calling it nowadays?
Program and Higher Education Leadership.
Program and Higher Education Leadership. They're changing it every year, I don't know. So furthermore, let's give Rich, I keep doing that. So let's give Dr. Reddick a round of applause and welcome up here.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Rich. It's okay. It really is. So it's cool. Anyway, good evening, right? It's evening, right? All right. Let's see if we can do this properly. So a few things about me you need to know. I teach graduate classes, and I insist on participation. So I will get off the stage and go up next to you and ask you questions. It has to happen. The second thing is, I don't believe there's 500 people in this room. I don't believe that. Is it 500? Nah.
I'm going to guess against that. About 5.
Yeah, how many, roughly? 400? 400? It doesn't seem like many people out here to me. But anyway, I'm excited to be here for a number of reasons. First of all, let me do this first thing. How many of you identify as first-generation college students? Is that me? Wow, that's interesting. Okay, hands up, keep them up, okay. All right, me too. I'm a first-generation college student. All right, how many of you identify as students of color? All right, me too. Identify as students of color. All right. How many of you, controversial, how many of you are scared shitless about being at UT? All right, that's me too. All right, we're friends. All right, so I say this to you because it's important to understand a couple things. I started my career here at University of Texas in the fall of 1990. Yes, you were not even alive back then. MC Hammer was huge, Depeche Mode, The Cosby Show was still on the TV, that kind of thing like that. So I can relate to your experience, and there wasn't a ULN back when I was a first-year student, so I'm really excited we have this program here now. A couple things you should know is that I am from Austin. Anybody from Austin here? Okay, y'all really from Austin, or are you from around Austin? Straight up Austin people. What high schools? Crockett, oops. Okay, so I went to Del Valley, Travis, Reagan, graduated from Johnston High School, which is now known as Eastside Memorial. Any Eastside people in this room? Eastside, in the house, Panthers, all right, my people. So, and I'm from Dove Springs, I'm from Southeast Austin. So everything about my profile, I think, suggests that this would be a good fit for me. And I came to UT completely ignorant of anything that was going to happen here. In fact, if you grow up in the south side of Austin back in the 80s, like I did, you never crossed the river for any reason. You didn't cross the river. So literally, I came to UT, I was the only person in my dorm from Austin, and I was living in a different city. Literally, I was in a city that was 4 miles from my parents' house, because Central Austin, West Campus is not like Dove Springs or Go Valley, right? So that's a whole new experience for me. But I hope that you can see in my experience that you can actually aspire to actually, A, finish this degree, B, get an advanced degree or two, and C, even work here. Maybe be a faculty member, right? That can all happen for you. So that's a possibility. So hopefully, don't forget that about who I am. That's who I am. I've never forgotten that who I am. I still represent those areas. My fellow Rebels, my fellow Raiders, my fellow Cardinals, and definitely my fellow Rams and Panthers. So anyway, it's good to be here. So, you are here ostensibly because you want to know more about mentoring, yes? Right class? Correct class? Am I in the right class? All right. So, I'm here to tell you as a personal example that mentoring can be life-changing. Literally, your life can change from the influence of a good mentor. That won't happen, however, if you're not ready to be mentored, right? So, let me give you a term, mentorability. Yeah, I made that up. It's still not on Urban Dictionary, but some of you can put it on there if you want. But the idea is, are you able to engage in a mutually beneficial developmental relationship? And I say mutually beneficial because people often think, okay, I have to go get a mentor. Like it's going to a vending machine and hitting a button, right? Mentoring is actually more complex than that. Mentoring involves reciprocity. You actually need people to get something out of it. I'll give you a quick crash course on something that you'll learn in grad school about something called social exchange theory. A guy named George Honens wrote about this. And basically Honens said something very profound, which sounds really basic, but he said, people don't do things unless there's a reward for them doing it, right? Charity, doing nice things for other people. You do it because you get something out of it, right? And relationships, friendships, romantic relationships, partnerships are all based on the idea of reciprocity. You get in what you put in. In fact, you probably get more out of what you put in. Am I right? Those of you who are in love or have really good friendships, isn't that true? You put in something, but you get way more back. That's what mentoring has to be about. And so you can't go into a mentoring relationship and say, okay, fill me up with some stuff for mentoring. I'm just going to chill out here, and you can just be there because you're an adult and you don't need any mentoring. That's not how it works. So stories of mentorship are important. So this is a picture of my colleague in my department, Victor Sines. Anybody in Project Males, work with Project Males, know about Project Males? Okay, so Dr. Sines is the founder of Project Males, and Dr. Sines and I were hired at the same time at UT in 2007. In fact, we were hired at the exact same time for the same position, and we had kind of made a joke that we were like, brothers, academic brothers, hermanos academicos, right? That was our joke. And we used to go get like adult beverages and talk about our experiences because we were both Texas X's. And we actually figured out that there were several times in our careers at Texas that we were in the same party, the same meeting, the same function, and we just didn't know each other. We knew the same people. He dated a girl that we both mutually knew. It was kind of bizarre. Like, how do we not know each other? But we didn't know each other officially. So we used to come back and say, man, can you believe we're professors at UT? Does it make any sense to you? Like, if you took to people in my class, they would say, this guy is the least likely to come back as a professor. Trust me on that. We're both professors here. And we started talking about it over these adult beverages. And then we had this idea, like, why don't we write about it? Why don't we just write an article about it? Because we're in a field that you have to create research. Both of us research men of color. Both of us research higher education. And we started writing it up. And there was a young man I got to know in graduate school, a guy named Colaggio. And Colaggio, I sent this piece to him and said, Colaggio, I'm writing a piece. Maybe you'll publish it in your Ed Review journal. And he said, it's pretty good. But if you did a couple things to it, it could be actually a research article. I'm like, what? This is over beers, man, really? And he's like, no, yeah, you could do this stuff to it. So we did the work over more adult beverages, spaced out. And we had the piece, submitted it back, and Colaggio moved it forward. It ended up getting published in the Harvard Educational Review, which is one of the most prestigious journals in my profession in higher education. So it was really cool. And it was really special to me because Colaggio unfortunately passed away. He died in a tragic accident. And I always think about his sort of vision about this piece. Like, this is not just you guys talking over beers. This is an article that's actually got some merit to it. So this is a very important article for me for that reason. But again, it's like, how do you conceptualize being where you are right now and saying, okay, in about 15, 20 years, I'll be back here on the stage talking to more students, right? So it's very personal to me. And this article is actually about the stories of mentorship we had. We had a couple of mentors in common. So one was a guy named David Montejano. He's a professor in history, and we took his class on Anglos, Mexicans, and Texas. Great class. And he might have been the first professor I had who invited me to his house. And we were in his backyard just having class. I'm like, dude, this is crazy. You can't do this. Is this legal? And Another person we had in common as mentors was a guy named Ricardo Romo. Anybody here from San Antonio? So you know Dr. Romo, right? President of UT San Antonio. At the time, he was a professor here and a vice provost here. Took a class with him. I didn't go to class one day, and he called me to his office. I was like, oh snap, what am I gonna do now? So I go to his office in the tower, and he's like, well, where have you been? I'm like, oh, I had no good excuse. He's like, well, you gotta come to class. I'm like, gotcha. He's like, okay. We started talking a little bit. He's from San Antonio, I'm from Austin. He was a Texas cowboy, I was a Silver Spur. We started having these conversations about kind of growing up, working class backgrounds, coming to UT. And he looks at his watch, he's like, I gotta get home. So, but I tell you what, if you wanna come with me to my house, my wife Harriet is having a party for her students. Do you wanna come? Beer and barbecue. I was 21. And I was like, yeah, I'll come, sweet. So I went in the car with him to his house. His wife, Harriet Romo, she teaches a class in the LBJ school at this time. And I'm hanging out with a bunch of graduate students. At the time, graduate students to me were like foreign people from other planets because they were like older and they had beards and, always frustrated about something. And I was just talking to these people and I'm like, wow, these people are like, they look kind of approachable. Some of them aren't that much older than me and they're in graduate school. That's kind of interesting. And I'm having barbecue and I'm drinking beer. This is great, And so I became very close to Dr. Romo after that. And even when I went to graduate school and I got married, he came to our wedding, gave us a gift and everything like that. And I came back to Texas several times when I was in graduate school. I went to Harvard for my master's and my doctorate. And I would come back here. Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice of you. So I came back here to do some work for Teach for America. I used to come back here to do recruitment for Teach for America or for Harvard Graduate School of Education, who is now the competition for me in my program. And when I came back, excuse me, I realized that I had time to visit with Dr. Romo. So I went to go visit with him. And we're in his office. He's the president of a university now. He's kind of a big deal. He always is a big deal, but even a bigger deal. And he says, you know what double R? Because I'm double R. He's double R too. He's like, you owe the state of Texas something back. We educated you in public schools and our higher education system. You owe something back to us. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I owe something to the University of Texas or UT San Antonio. A couple years later, sure enough, there were positions at UT San Antonio and UT Austin to apply for. I applied for both, interviewed at both, and I kind of remembered his words, like you owe something to the state of Texas. So that's kind of why it's important for me to be at a place like UT, because this is the place that developed me. Y'all cheered when I said I went to Harvard, but let me tell you something. Harvard was something I was able to accomplish because of what I did here at UT. And in fact, when I went to Harvard, I'd never been to Cambridge, Massachusetts before. I didn't even know, I thought it was in Boston actually. I didn't know the town across the river was called Cambridge. A little trivia tip for if you didn't know that. So when I went there and I sort of got off, the bus and kind of looked around and noticed how small everything was, first of all. And I said to myself, okay, so this is a whole new experience for me. I don't know anybody here. I have no connections here whatsoever. But I went to UT Austin. I went to a school of 50,000 people where you walk into a classroom and you greet people, you don't know who they are, you say hi to them. And I did that for the year I was there. And I did that when I was a master's student, a doctoral student. And when I graduated in 2007, I got a call after I got my job at UT Austin from the people at Harvard. And they're like, hey, Rich, how you doing? I'm doing great. They're like, I got a job. I'm employed. Things are going well. They're like, well, we're calling to say congratulations. I'm like, why? They're like, because you've been elected class marshal. I'm like, I graduated already. Like, yeah, we know. But can you come back and be class marshal for next year? Okay. And what does class marshal mean? You're the person who takes your whole college or your whole school to Harvard Yard with a big old guidon with your school name on it, and you go up there and you present your class to the graduation thing. And that's an elected position. People vote for that. So people voted for me a year after I was gone. And the reason why is because I went to Texas, because I was a Texas guy, and I learned Texas things, like being friendly, being outgoing, taking risks, not being afraid to talk to people face to face, not being afraid to go to my professors, not being afraid of being wrong. All those things were part of the package that I learned here. And so my friends who went to Wellesley and went to Colby College, they didn't necessarily know those things as well as I did. So, Texas. So, what is mentoring? I love this quote, and I'm going to do my little Oprah thing here. Let's see if I can still do this. I better just get down instead of jumping. I used to jump, not so much anymore. Who wants to read this first slide? Over there. I like that. She's like, yeah, I'm on it. Oh, you need the microphone, trust me.
Okay. The delicate balance of mentoring someone is not creating them in your own image, but giving them the opportunity to create themselves.
Thank you. So, yes, absolutely, yeah. It's not reproducing yourself. It's not becoming like, hey, let's have another rich clone. No, it's like, I'm going to help you along the way to be who you are, right? Very important. Another mentoring definition. Who wants to read this one? My man right here.
A mentor is someone who sees more talent and ability within you than you see in yourself and helps bring it out of you.
Excellent. So, yes, give him a hand. So I already mentioned Dr. Romo. Like, I don't know why he thought a kid who was skipping his class needed to come to his office and talk to him and go to a barbecue that he was hosting. But he saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, right? This is a good one. Who wants to read this one? I'm going to go with it. How am I going to get over there? Let's make this happen. Okay. A little cooperation. Pass that down.
You don't ask a guy to be your boyfriend on the first date. The same goes for asking someone to be your mentor.
The second date, right? Exactly. So yeah, I understand you guys have a term called thirstiness, right? So you don't want to be a thirsty mentee. You want to make sure you've established some level of, sense of communication, a connection of some kind. Not everybody you talk to will be a good mentor. Not everybody who people say to you, oh, talk to Professor so-and-so. They'll be a great mentor to you. What if y'all just don't have the right personalities that fit together, right? That's something to think about. So, quick thought exercise. You can do this silently, and I'm going to ask for some volunteers. So I want you to think back. First of all, how many of you have actually been a mentor or a mentee before? It's already happened to you. All right, most of y'all, great. Okay, so think back to that experience. So first the question I want you to think about is, who was most memorable? The good mentor or the bad mentor? And then why? Thinking about it? Okay. Who else wants to share their experience about what's more memorable, the good or the bad? Oh, man, it's like, yeah, I got things to talk about. All right, break it down.
The good mentor, just because, in my personal experiences, my good mentors are still a part of my life, influencing me in the right direction, and are part of who I am today.
Great. So he's saying, like, look, that person who mentored me, they're still around. They're still part of my life. That's why they're still memorable. Anybody have a memorable bad mentor? Or were you a memorable bad mentor? Okay, I'm in over here. Tell me about it.
It's like those teachers that you really hate in high school, where they're like, you like go and they're like, this is how to draw a line. We're in an art class, and you're like, oh man, I thought I already knew how to do the alphabet and all that stuff, man.
So not really pushing you to your best limits, right? That's a good point. Other question to ask is, how could you be a better, so in a situation where you're being mentored by somebody, how could you have been a better mentee? Like inherently, we're not perfect people. You might think about, man, I wish I had done this, or I wish I had the opportunity to do this. How could you have been a better mentee? I'm scanning over here. I'm gonna come down. Oh, I'm gonna come in the very back over here. I feel a lot of pressure to make sure I get in the right places, right? Go ahead.
As a mentee, I could have possibly taken their advice better and not have put myself in a bad situation.
All right, sorry about that. Yeah, so taking advice, maybe thinking things through, but let me also tell you something about being a mentee. You're younger usually, less experienced usually, so part of that process is developmental. Like, it's not all about doing everything your mentor tells you to do. Sometimes you will make a different decision, and that's okay. So, my colleague Veronica Jones, who's a professor at UT San Antonio right now, did some research about students and their experiences mentoring. And she asked, what are some good versus bad mentoring qualities? And so students said, someone who's an advocate for the student as they become acclimated to a new environment. The individual shows authenticity and genuine interest in sharing their knowledge. They provide student the opportunity to be heard and make the student feel that he or she adds value despite the mentor's expertise. So it's not like, oh, you're new to this, I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know. They're like, no, you can share some of the stuff you know as well, right? Giving you opportunity to shine. Bad qualities? Someone who always asserts their authority as the one in power. You know people like that? People who flex on you all the time, like I'm in charge here, I'm the leader here, I'm the person who's got the badge on and so forth, right? You know that people. Individuals disconnected to the needs, culture of the current generation of youth. Ooh, we go on Urban Dictionary every day and get our new words and make sure we use them, right? But sometimes I think it's more than that. I think it's people who legitimately think, well, you're a millennial, you're obviously spoiled, and you don't care about this, that, and the other, right? That's not really giving you much of an opportunity to shine. And then, of course, assert that the rules and routines are preferenced over students' needs and exceptions. And what that means basically is that sometimes you need a break, right? Don't you all need a break sometimes? Get pulled over by a cop. Can I get a warning, please? Right? Turn a paper in late. Hey, man, can I get a little bit of some love on this? And let me make it clear that that's not always an expectation, but sometimes you need a little bit of a break. A good mentor recognizes that. However, a good mentor is not going to say you can have a break all the time. They might say to you, okay, first time that was cool. This time, not so much. There's a consequence. Those are the things you have to think about. So I did some research with faculty members, professors who mentor students, and I asked them, what do they say about mentoring? So my colleague Vicky Baker talked about the importance of sort of checking in with yourself, knowing what you need, what you want, right? Figuring out how to get where you want to go. That's an important piece of being mentored. Mary Beth Gassman, who is just a really cool lady. You guys probably aren't higher education freaks like I am and get the Chronicle of Higher Education, but she made a lot of news this last week or so because she wrote a piece about faculty diversity, and she kind of put universities on blast. She said, look, the reason why we don't have diverse faculties is because you don't want them. You're not doing the things as universities to recruit Latino, African American, Native American scholars. So, she kind of brought the wood. She's like, look, you should volunteer and do things and follow through. And be open for criticism, because some people are like, you can't criticize me. You're going to give me some negative stuff about myself. Oh, I can't hear that. We all could use some criticism, right? And part of it is learning how to take the criticism constructively. If somebody comes to you and says your stuff is sloppy, it's not a diss necessarily. It might be, look, you can do better than this, and I recognize that. I need you to do better than this. Anybody taking a class with Mrs. Brenda Burt by any chance? Okay. Teaches a class called Minority Student Leadership. But Mrs. Burt was my mentor when I was in college. And we had several conversations about how I needed to improve certain things. And they did not feel good. It did not feel good being told you need to be on time for things. Like coming something at 8:05 when it starts at 8 o'clock, you need to be here at 7:45. Okay, cool. And that was out of love. She recognized that I needed some polishing, right? And so I'm that person now who tells people to be there at 7:45, right? So it's really important to get that mentoring. My colleague King Griffin, who's at the University of Maryland, this is really important. She says, mentoring is about understanding that you as a mentee are one part of a lot of pieces in people's lives. Most people want to be helpful, but you have to be the person to say, this is what I need from you. A lot of us will get this conversation happening like, hey, I need a mentor. Mentor me, Dr. Reddick. And I'm like, that's kind of forward. I don't know. It's like that slide, don't ask on the first date, right? But more importantly, it's like, well, what do you need exactly? Do you need help in learning how to write better? Do you need help in learning how to apply for fellowships? Do you need help in figuring out how to get through UT? What do you need exactly? So you have to know what you want from the relationship, right? That's really important. And also, mentors are usually ahead of you in the career game, so we may think you need something that you don't need. Oh, you need some help, on figuring out how to look for internships. No, I got that. It's not that. I need help understanding how to manage being away from home, from my family. How do I do that, right? That's what you need to let them know. And one of my mentors from graduate school, Professor Frank Tuitt, said, have a team. And so there's a concept in the mentoring literature that says constellation mentoring. Constellation. So not just one mentor, but multiple mentors. How many of you have multiple mentors, more than one person? Good, you're on point, you know what you need to do. And mentoring is a two-way street, the reciprocity piece I was talking about. And then the idea that, you know what, there are days that this job is hard. I love my job, but there are days that it's hard. And what keeps me going is the fact that I know that some of you are doing it too. People often say, Black Lives Matter is going on right now. We have protests going on and so forth. You know, what do you feel about that, Dr. Reddick? And I'm like, look, I'm excited when I see young people excited about something. That gives me fire and fuel and so forth. So a few months back, well, actually probably a year or two ago, we did this. Right after the University of Missouri had a lot of problems with diversity issues, a bunch of the students who were in the Black Graduate Student Association met up at the MLK statue on the East Mall and said, we're going to take a picture in solidarity and post it to social media for our friends at University of Missouri. Because people actually knew people there. It wasn't like random abstract people we don't know. These are people we knew. So I went there with a couple colleagues of mine, and they were like, yo, Dr. Reddick, you're here. I'm like, yeah, of course. And like they were like, why, you know, we didn't know you would come. I'm like, I'm down with this. I was a graduate student not that long ago, so I understand the emotion you guys felt. So we took that picture. A few years before that, we took pictures in front of the tower. You know, I work with the MEC. How many of y'all been to the MEC and visit the Multicultural Engagement Center? We need to change that. Y'all need to come out to the MEC and check it out. And the GSC, you need to come check that out as well. So we all went out there, middle of the summer, took a picture, just letting students know that, first of all, students of color are here on this campus. We're part of this university, and we are proud to represent our university. So that was important. So things like that get me going as well. So there's days where I need to see that happening, right? So if you're going to take on the responsibility of mentoring, being a mentee, right, because you have to get internships, right? Is that right? Part of the ULN experience, you have to get an internship. Is that right? Nodding heads, yes? Yes. Okay, thank you. First of all, assess yourself. What do I need to know about going to space? What strengths do I bring to this? You got the internship, so you obviously do something well. But what are the things I need to work on to improve on, to be in the space? Secondly, conflict. It's going to happen. How many of you in this room are conflict avoidant? You don't like to have arguments with people and stuff like that. I'm kind of that way sometimes, unless it's about football. I argue that all day, or politics. But everything else, I'm kind of like, yeah, I'm kind of cool with this. But honestly, expect to have conflict. People are going to challenge you. They're going to disagree with you. They're going to have different ways of seeing the world. How are you going to handle that? Not how can I avoid it, but how will I handle that? Can I be involved with people and respectfully say to them, you know what, I don't agree with you on this point at all. I think differently than you do. And then last, what are some tools that I can use to overcome challenges? I'm sure in this class you are learning tools, resources, opportunities, things you can do to overcome challenges. How many in this room identify as being introverts? I'm an introvert, honestly, because people say, well, you're talking on a stage to 500 people. I'm like, yeah, but if this is over with, I will probably go to the people I know in the room and talk to them. You go to a party and go to people you talk to all the time, that's what I do. My wife is very quiet, but she'll talk to anybody. I'm the complete opposite. So, you know, if you're an introvert, you know, understand that you have to learn how to function in the space where people kind of value extroversion. Where my extroverts at? So y'all have it easy. Y'all like, yay, what's up? How y'all doing? You know, I'm like, oh, hi, how you doing? I'm a little quieter than you. But understand you got to learn how to work with both types of personalities. Self-perception. When you see people, what do you notice? The way they dress, their age probably. Is this person older or younger than me? Their gender. Sometimes you're not correct on that. Race and ethnicity, same thing there. You're not always certain of those things. The language they use, physical characteristics, their body language, facial expressions, likes and dislikes. These are all things we use to assess people, right? Or perceive people. And I said the word assess. I didn't want to say that, but it actually makes sense because we tend to judge people based on these things, do we not? It's not always bad judgment, right? You're like, oh, that person is dressed really nicely. That's cool with me. But unfortunately, a lot of times we have these negative sort of pieces that come with it, stereotypes, right? And so what we want to do is avoid making sure we don't find ourselves stereotyping people, right? It's important. And of course, what you also understand, this metaphor of the iceberg, is there's so much more underneath, right? You don't know somebody's emotional state, or how they like leadership, or how they identify with their gender, or sexual orientation, or religious beliefs and cultural values. You can't know that from looking at somebody. So you have to challenge yourself to make sure you look at people in their entirety. And at the same time, everybody wants to be seen this way, right? Don't you want people to understand this about yourself? When I walk into a room, especially if I'm not wearing a burnt orange blazer on a stage, I'm a black dude, right? And so people often will assess me without knowing any of these parts about who I am. And that hurts, right? I don't like to be assessed as this being, that's just a black dude who, whatever, right? And quite frankly, in today's world, there are negative consequences for being assessed a certain way because of your racial background, because of your sexual orientation, or your gender identity. That's real, that's happening, right? You know of people who have either been injured, harmed, emotionally, physically, or dead because of those things, right? So it's important to remember we need to be processing and perceiving people in their entirety, and also the desire we have to be perceived that way as well. So reciprocity, you get what you give. Okay, so question for you. Do you know what you bring to a relationship as a mentee? Raise your hand if you do. You can tell me right now, this is what I bring to a relationship as a mentee. You raising your hand? Kind of, sort of? Take a risk, come on, let's do it. Yeah, I came to you. Still got that. There you go.
So you want me to answer that question?
Yeah.
Okay. So I think maybe like when you're talking to your mentor, you're giving them like your problems, and that might carry some weight on your mentor. I guess the mentee basically like rants and like bends out to the mentor, so the mentor has to pretty much strategize a way to make this person like emotionally capable of getting over a problem, and that may bring up some, I guess, memories, some situations that the mentor had that were very similar, I guess you can say.
Sure. That's great, thank you. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I mean, that's a good point. So sometimes it's nice to kind of revisit my experience as a freshman or a sophomore at UT and say to you, oh, this is what you should do, because this is what happened to me, right? Sometimes people like reflecting on those experiences. It's really important to think about, what do I give? Sometimes it's stuff like you're excited, you have energy, you're motivated, you're passionate, you're so excited about going into chemistry. It makes somebody excited about that. Like, if you're a chemist, you love that, right? My good friend, Dr. Iverson, he loves chemistry. So if you're interested in chemistry, talking about chemistry, you'll get him excited. So that's what it's all about. Sometimes it's things like, hey, I'm from the same community as you, right? Where are my Eastside Memorial people? Where are you guys at? All right, so I get excited because you guys are here. Went to the same place, same school, same lockers, probably some of the same, not same teachers, not anymore, they retired. But to me, it's exciting to be with people who are from my same background, right? So that to me is exciting. So know that's important for some people, right? How about things like just simply being a receptive person? Part of getting older is that you learn all these cool things, and sometimes people don't want to hear what you have to say, right? Part of being young is sort of saying, like, I don't want to hear what you have to say right now. I'm going to do my own thing, right? But when somebody actually perceives it and said, man, that's some good advice, I'm going to do that. It's inspiring for people who are older, right? So, what do mentees bring in a relationship? I did some research with Dr. Rick Cherwitz. Now, this is a name you should know, because Dr. Cherwitz runs a program called